This week in Agribusiness, serving America's most essential industry, with agriculture broadcaster Orion Samuelson and yours truly, Max Armstrong, and featuring agriculture meteorologist Greg Solier. This week in Agribusiness is brought to you by Firestone. You never farm alone.
The end of August is typically a slow time on the farm, which makes it a great time to get to a farm show. Hello friends, I'm Mike Pearson. Thanks for joining us on this weekend's edition of This Week in Agribusiness. We are getting excited for the Farm Progress Show to take place next week, but this week we had a couple of shows going on in Central Illinois. Our very own Max Armstrong had a chance to go to the Maggie show. This is the show put on by the Illinois Fertilizer and Chemical Association, and it is an exposition of all the newest technology when it comes to fertilizer and chemical application. Drones, floaters, applicators, all on display, and Max has an update.
Mike, it is a busy show season we're in right now, to be sure, and we dropped by one more show we don't always visit. We came to the Maggie show at Bloomington, Illinois. This is the fertilizer and chemical industry. Well, the Maggie show, these representatives work with farmers to get the crop inputs out there on the fields. We talked with Kevin Johnson, interim president of the Illinois Fertilizer and Chemical Association. They host this show that's been in existence about 40 years.
You know, with corn and soybean prices up, everybody's pretty energized about the coming spring if we can just keep equipment flowing. But actually sales have been really good. Everybody we talked to in the last couple of days are really excited what they can move just with the ag economy, how it is right now.
Right now with prices where they are, producers want to take advantage of that opportunity. That window sometimes is awful narrow, isn't it?
Exactly right. And what we have seen is, you know, there might be a year that guys have kind of pinched some stuff along, kind of worked some stuff out. They've got some money in the pocket now that are trying to upgrade where they need to. And so our vendors right now, our equipment people, are really happy with what kind of sales are going on right now. And this is a great opportunity to show the latest and greatest in the fertilizer and chemical industry.
Your members have to run hard in many instances to service their producers because that window is so narrow indeed.
Everything has tightened up on that window. You know, it used to be we'd plant corn and then take a couple days off and then start planting beans. Now everything, we're planting earlier beans and we're planting right with corn. So a lot of our ag retailers have a 1 or 2 week window that they are spraying so much stuff or getting that product out that they're gonna need pretty good size equipment to get over those acres to cover everybody.
And you see that in the equipment lineup here, don't you?
Absolutely. A lot of big booms, a lot of big equipment. You know, it usuld to be the standard be 120 foot booms. You know, there's somebody out here that's got 150, 180 foot chemical booms that are out.
I mean, I was in a sprayer just a few years ago with a 120-foot boom, and I thought, man, that's a great reach, and it just keeps getting bigger.
It keeps getting bigger, but the biggest thing is the technology. We got a Thomas spreader out there. We have a drone that is spreading product. It is the latest and greatest technology is here to be showcased, but it's changing every year. If you would have said 5 years ago we're going to have a Thomas spreader or a drone that's doing this, probably kind of laugh, but who knows what the next 5 years is going to bring in the industry.
Yeah, Mike, watching the equipment operated here and the ride and drive at the Maggie show reminds us that there's that opportunity too, a ride and drive at the Farm Progress show where producers can come out and look at that wide array of equipment, whether it's the combines, the tractors, the headers, the grain carts, the tillage tools. We'll look forward to that for sure.
Thank you, Max. It's always fantastic to see the kind of new toys out there at the farm show, but in order to pay for those new toys, we got to get our grain sold. To help us make sense of the current grain marketing environment, our friend Dale Dirkholz from Grain Cycles is joining us. Dale, it's good to talk to you again. Looking at the weakness here in the corn market, are we just going to slide into harvest, do you think?
You know, that's a possibility. You know, the rally yesterday that we had, or on Tuesday we had in beans, took it right up to the 20 and 50-day moving averages. It stalled out. Corn did the same thing on Wednesday. They moved right up to those moving averages and stalled out. You know, the Pro Farmer Tour that we had here wrapped up about a week ago now. You know, those numbers came in a little bit higher than what people were thinking about. And with that, you know, you got everybody really just kind of uncertain about what's going to be out there as far as crop itself, with everybody looking back at the weather forecast.
Yeah, that's the truth of it. We've got the number from USDA that came out at the start of the month on their supply and demand estimates, pulled both corn and beans down substantially. Then Pro Farmer came around and said, yeah, it's still down from early expectations, but it's a little higher than USDA. Meanwhile, the trade's just going to kind of wait for the combines to roll. But Dale, in the meantime, ethanol production continues to command a huge chunk of this country's corn crop. There's some uncertainty right now about the future of ethanol. Is that driving prices in any specific direction?
In a bigger sense, I don't know that it is here just yet. It might be a bit of a cap or a lid on the market at this point because of the uncertainty. You know, here the last 2, 3, 4 weeks now, we've had weekly numbers in ethanol output go down, but I think part of that is probably people doing some maintenance, taking some downtime. Also, it's really hot outdoors, which creates a bit of an issue. But the longer term thing, I think, is just hanging out there for people to think about. Nobody really wants to sell it. Nobody really wants to buy it because of it. But I think they're kind of nervous that, you know, the RFS game is going to be changed and not to the liking of the farm community.
Yeah, and we're still waiting on those updates from EPA, but the renewable volume obligations are expected now to come in a little bit lower, which I know a lot of folks in the ag industry weren't really excited about. Dale, I want to pick your brain for a second. Farmers are gearing up for harvest. They're getting ready to start stockpiling one crop or another on their farm. As you look out to this harvest season and growers are making that storage decision, do you want to be storing corn or do you think there's a play to store beans this year on the farm?
You got a coin to flip? You know, that's really a difficult question at this point because a lot of it's going to be tied up into weather for South America. We've already had people talking about La Nina and maybe the impact that could have on South American production this next winter. But I think this early a date, it's probably not good to bank on that. I think overall, when you look around fundamentally, I tend to give corn maybe a bit better of an edge from a fundamental structure to tend to hold prices together a little bit better than maybe beans will going forward. We already know the South Americans, Brazilians are going to plant more beans, or at least it sounds like they are this coming year. So if I had to choose the two, probably a little bit more biased to corn than beans, but you know, that's not a real strong bias either.
Gotcha. Looking at a little bit longer term for growers who aren't quite sure what their production is going to be on their corn acres this year, how should they be handling marketing knowing that we're in this typical pre-harvest price slide?
You know, the one thing I think I'd be a little careful about here is maybe, you know, looking at rallies and using opportunities there to play a little bit of defense in the game. You know, you can look at, if you want, outright hedges or even some cash sales, but I tend to think that if you're going to do anything outright like a cash sale, maybe buy some kind of a cheap out of the money call against it or put on a bull call spread, really the case may be. You know, but I kind of prefer at this point maybe kind of taking a little bit of defense with some bear put spreads, give me some downside protection, not huge, but at least some limited downside protection. I did some work this week looking at timing indicators in both corn and beans, and to me it looks like we've got some lows due out in front of us, maybe on into early October at this point, it looks like, for both corn and beans. And so I tend to see things that look a little negative as far as that's concerned when I think about the overall picture. Not huge bear, but just things that could be a little bit of a weak tone.
All right, we'll be back to probe Dale's mind for more details in just a minute. This portion of This Week in Agribusiness is brought to you by the Soybean Checkoff. Tips, videos, how-tos, and more. If it has to do with ag tech, you'll find it in the Tech Tool Shed, your unbiased one-stop resource. And we're back. We're talking markets with Dale Dirkholtz from Grain Cycles. And Dale, just before we went to break, you mentioned that you were looking at some schedules and some cycles and thought you might be seeing some short-term lows in the future. What are you looking for?
Yeah, you know, when you look at corn and beans, they both have a rhythm to them, you know, and one thing to make complain to people, first off, price cycles tell you about time. They tell you nothing about price, and you have to understand that. But when you get into something in the short term and you're seeing a cycle low standing out in there, and for beans, it's a 32-week low, corn, a 40-week low, both look like they're due to come somewhere along the way there in October. So I think it looks like they're going to marry up with the traditional seasonal lows and give us some kind of a harvest low out in there. And given the way the market's been acting, unless we get something moving here pretty quickly, you know, those are going to tend to put more pressure on as we go through time.
Gotcha. And Dale, you mentioned the broader market, looking at how it is acting. Of course, we've come through summer. We've had drought in North America. We've had drought in South America. We're starting to put those concerns behind us to some extent, looking at broader measures of things that might impact commodity pricing. Of course, the value of the U.S. dollar is one of those factors. What's your understanding of the current value of the U.S. dollar, and where do you see it going from here?
You know, one thing I think about here, and I posted it up in here, back last November, December, around the election, I looked at the dollar on a long-term base based on the presidential cycles themselves, or at least change in administrations. And it seems to follow true. You know, when we had President Obama in office, we had a strong dollar. President Trump, it was sideways to lower. Now President Biden, you know, we don't know about at this point. But one thing you think about in there is one thing that moves currency values is relative safety or risk. And you know, when you look at what went on during Obama's years, we had a world that was still a little bit more risky. Before him, President Bush, you know, we were taking on the Iraqis, we were taking on Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan, and the world was perceived safer, so money tended to flow out of the U.S. during the Bush years. In Obama years, we were a little bit more low profile, some things started to flare up a little bit, and money was flowing into the U.S. because it didn't want to invest out in the world. President Trump, a little bit more hawkish in one sense, tending to be a little bit more aggressive with some of those other world leaders, and so we had money that slightly moved in, and now we have President Biden. And what I think about here with what happened in Afghanistan here the last couple of weeks, the world to me has become a less safe place as we look forward in time now. And I kind of wonder in the back of my mind if that isn't going to cause investors to go, you know, we really need to go where there's safe haven as far as putting our money at this point. And I kind of wonder if that isn't going to start moving money into the dollar. And actually, when I look at 2021, again, to go back to price cycles, there was a low due in the early part of 2021, a 3-year low, retested back last summer. And, you know, now we're up in here and we're playing with the upper end of the range. And last week we had the dollar at its highest levels going back all the way to November 2020. So I tend to see the dollar maybe having a bit stronger bias towards the upside than the downside, and that isn't going to help commodities at all.
No, it certainly isn't. But one of the other concerns I'm hearing from a lot of folks is that of inflation. Dale, as you take a longer term view, perhaps through the end of 2021, is inflation going to be a concern?
Well, that kind of ties into whatever the Fed is going to do or isn't going to do. And, you know, we've already started to hear some rumbles here this last week that we may see a taper on their bond buying program start a little bit sooner than what people thought just 2-3 months ago. But everybody is basically of an attitude, and has been, you know, dollar is going to trend weaker. But when you look at some of the bigger picture things in terms of sentiment, emotion, and timing things, it says, I'm not so certain that's going to happen.
All right, we will wait and see. Dale Dirkholtz from Grain Cycles.
Chad Colby's look at agriculture technology comes your way next, brought to you by the IBM Watson Decision Platform. Combining AI with Internet of Things data to help agribusiness increase yields, improve quality, and drive sustainability.
Well, our trip to the Maggie show here, visiting with these folks in the application business who work with farmers, reminds us of how long many of them have been away from a farm show. There have been 2 years of development of new products.
You're right, Max. It's show season for sure, and being here this week, you get an idea of some of the technology that we've missed. You look at this product here today, mixing chemicals has always been cumbersome. The paperwork, all the legalities to what you're doing, and making sure you do it right. And seeing some of the automation with this, just even the simple things, rinsing jugs and measuring and making sure you have the right product. It's nice to see some of that technology. This particular technology, I got kind of a special place in my heart for, Max. It came from a farm in Iowa. When I say a farm, these guys are farmers, they're sons, they're involved with the business. And it's a lot of fun to see great technology like this, but a great crowd. And when you get a chance to see a lot of people looking at the technology and demoing it, whether it's here in this booth or application equipment running just near us, it gives you that chance to see the technology for a lot of people for the first time.
Thanks for joining us here to explain it. It's a reminder of how many great farm inventions come out of farm shops.
Thank you, Max and Chad. It is very cool to see this technology again in person after 2 years from the lack of farm shows. Max, that's got me thinking a lot of folks are going to want to see the new technology on display at the Farm Progress Show. When should they be there to do it?
Yeah, I thought it might be helpful, Mike, to give folks a little bit of guidance on the timetable each day at the Farm Progress Show. Many farmers will be headed out for those field demonstrations, and those start at 11 o'clock in the morning on the combines, 11 a.m. till noon. Then at 12 noon, they'll have the tiling demonstrations, showing how the field tile is installed out there. Then in the afternoon, that's when the tillage equipment comes out between 2 and 3 in the afternoon. They'll bring the regular tillage out there, first of all, the slower moving machines, then they bring in the high speed tillage. Yeah, you want to stand back when those tractors are moving through. Altogether, more than 50 pieces of equipment will be demonstrated during the field demonstrations at the Farm Progress Show. It'll be my privilege to describe that equipment out there working in the field. And then I'll be at the Case IH display every day from 11 to 12. And Wednesday afternoon between 3 and 5 at the Farm Progress Show, we'll be doing our This Week in Agribusiness stage broadcast. Between noon and 1:15 each day, the noon show will be broadcast there. That will be from the Hospitality Building. We hope you can join us for that. Lee Bryce will be on stage at the Farm Progress Show Wednesday afternoon at 5:30. And the Thursday afternoon, 1:30 in the afternoon, I'll be honoring some of the master farmers honored the past 2 years for 2020 and 2021 in the state of Illinois. The ticket price, if you don't buy it in advance, if you buy it there at the gate, it's $20. If you go online, purchase your ticket in advance, it's $15. Now for teenagers, the ticket price coming in, those in the age range of 13 to 17, it's $10. And for those under the age of 13, 12 and younger, the ticket price is $0. You can get in free to the Farm Progress Show. We look forward to seeing you in Decatur, Illinois. Mike, I think many folks will come out there looking for Mike Pearson. They'll find you there, won't they?
You bet, Max. I'm really excited to get to the Farm Progress Show this year and connect with everybody and see all the new technology. And I hope you folks will stick around. Later in the show, we'll take a look at the third installment from the Winning Has Roots Tour. And you better believe Max will have an update from the Half Century of Progress show down in Rantoul before the end of this episode. Thanks for joining us here on This Week in Agribusiness. Across the country, students are heading back to school, and that means a lot of ag education students are getting their first real experience with FFA. But not every student has that opportunity. The Iowa FFA Foundation recognized this was something they could fix, so they have started a new program, All In for Ag Education, which seeks to provide an ag ed education to 100% of Iowa students by the FFA's 100th anniversary. They've got a little ways to go to get there.
Yeah, right now there are 250 programs in the state of Iowa, but that also leaves us about 80 short of the overall level for the state. So we have some room to grow. We have a couple that scatter the map that are rural, but by and large, a lot of these are our more urban schools. Cedar Rapids, for example, has some opportunity to grow. Waterloo, Cedar Falls, some of those. We would love to continue to grow opportunities for all students and share agricultural leadership and help them understand what FFA is all about. We know that any major initiative usually takes a pretty major investment. And we know there's no better investment, and maybe I might be a little biased on that, but we know there's no better investment than our FFA students. That investment would come by way of needing support for our ag teachers, helping recruit and retain some of the best and brightest to help be those coaches, those mentors for those students, help provide opportunities to make sure that no financial barrier exists for student participation. We don't need to have a structure that would require dues or even the cost of an FFA jacket or something like that. How do we build an endowment, a fund that can help these students just walk in the classroom and say, I'm here, and we welcome them with open arms and gladly help build the leadership skills and potential. That carries a very heavy price tag. We've joked about how are we going to ever raise that much money, but we know we've got just a few years to do it before 2029, and we know that we can make that happen. So we're excited for all of our donors, individuals, corporate, government, everybody to come together, join us, because when we're all in for Ag Ed, we can do it.
It may be a big ask, but donors are responding positively. One donor has already pledged a 50% match on all donations that come into this program for the next 3.5 years. To find out why this has had such great appeal, I talked to Matthew Eddy. He's the state FFA advisor about what makes FFA unique.
You know, I think one of the things that FFA is the best in the world at is the leadership, development, and communication. And I really think that's one of the things that we're looking to capitalize on. Everybody needs leadership ability, speaking skills, being able to communicate effectively and efficiently. All are great things for students to have, whether they end up in an ag career field or not. You know, students that are in our agriculture education programs are students that are, one, interested, but a lot of times are going to be the students that stay around in your community and are going to be vested in your community. And so they're going to be your future school board leaders. They're going to be your future county supervisors. And so the more leadership and communication training we can give them now, the better they're going to be for everyone later.
Ag education is different from a lot of other high school disciplines because students really get to be hands-on.
Agriculture education is a three-component model. We have the classroom. We also have what we could call work-based learning experience, or we term it SAE, supervised ag experience. But a work-based learning experience where students can do some career exploration and find out kind of what they're interested in, what their skills are good at, or maybe what they're not good at, but all that good career exploration at a time when it's easy entry, easy exit, and they can certainly make a better informed career choice. And then, of course, we have the FFA, which is the leadership, development, communication skills. I often termed it, you know, it's the sugar that makes the medicine go down, right? It is the part that people are excited about. It's our football. It's our thing that gets the community excited. It gets the kids excited. And amazingly enough, we're learning as we're doing it, which then again, don't tell them that though. They won't want to do it as much. But they're learning those valuable skills and they're able to put that into practice.
Those hands-on experiences are more than just educational. SAEs actually have a real economic benefit to the state.
We have a program that kind of helps students track and record, so they're learning record keeping and other skills as they're going forward, but we can also aggregate that data, and we're looking at over 500,000 journaled hours of skill development in the last year alone from our students. Also with almost $20 million in economic development, students are putting money back into the economy. They're building their asset base, they're building an economic future, and they're also getting started in something that they have a passion about. And hopefully they either continue with that or even find a way to discover new things. Heck, I think half the reason people change their major in college is they go, ooh, look, shiny stuff over there. I didn't even know that existed. And you think about all the things that students can learn in FFA, they find their shiny stuff. They find the things that they're going to be excited about, interested in.
Well, Iowa FFA certainly is looking for that shiny stuff too as they raise funds for this endowment. I asked Josh Remington how interested folks could donate to this project.
Feel free to contact us at the Iowa FFA Foundation. We have our website, iowaffafoundation.org. Our phone number's there, our email addresses are all there. Feel free. We have a donate now button, so if they're ready right now, click and we will be happy to help there. But if they have other opportunities, other things, you know, if they've got a 5-acre chunk of land that they're trying to figure out, they don't want it to be fallow in this year, guess what? We can help with that too. So we have a plethora of options. Probably the best way to connect is start with our website, iowaffafoundation.org.
If you'd like to help bring more Ag Ed opportunities to Iowa students, you can learn more about the program and make a donation by visiting their website, iowaffafoundation.org.
This Week in Agribusiness, serving America's most essential industry, is brought to you by Firestone. You never farm alone.
Welcome back to This Week in Agribusiness. For the past several weeks, Farm Progress Executive Director Willie Vogt has been on the Winning Has Roots tour. He's taken that big yellow van to the Farm Progress show site, but on the way, he had the chance to stop and learn about a new direction for corn breeding.
On our final stop on the Winning Has Roots tour, we took a look at corn, or actually the future of corn, and what we found is the future of corn might just be shorter. We talked with Jason Carr about short stature corn, and he explained to us why it's important for farmers.
It's corn that's about a third shorter than typical hybrids that are already out there on the market. And the ear height is a little bit lower also. It's, roughly about knee high. Really any product that comes to market is really needs to be 24 inches off the ground or higher. I think it brings a lot of benefits to the table for growers. The first one is just really obvious. It's shorter, has a lower center of gravity. The stalks are slightly thicker because it really has about the same amount of plant material as a standard hybrid. It's just packed into a little bit shorter area. The inner nodes are shorter, so the distance between the leaves is compacted on those leaves below the ear. So it's a little bit stiffer, and therefore it's more resistant to wind. It stands better than typical corn. We have some examples of last year when the derecho went through Iowa, some of our trials. Maybe not right in the path, because eventually all corn is going to fall down, right? But we have some examples of our trials where you can just see aerial photos, and there's the short corn standing like straight up and down, and the tall corn all around it's down. So that height difference, really, that's kind of the first thing we see is the standability. It's really interesting how it handles stress. In our early testing, we found that the roots actually develop better as a function of the plant shortening up. I can't talk intelligently about the pathways in it all, but we've seen that the roots are just more developed than the standard hybrids, and so we believe that it has better ability to handle water stress, better nutrient use efficiency. There's a lot of benefits. Obviously, if you have a better root system in relation to the plant, you're going to handle stress and utilize nutrients a lot better.
So we're standing in a field where Bear is checking the technology for short stature corn. There are many different hybrids behind me, but this corn is actually in the field in Mexico, and Jason discussed what he's learned from growers down there.
Talked to a Mexican grower just this spring just to kind of get an idea of what he was seeing with it, and he was very excited about this product, and it's pretty much exactly what we've seen in our trials, being able to get across it later in the season, using those nutrients more efficiently. The standability, all those things that we see here are really what they've seen there in a commercial setting.
Reporting from the Winning Has Roots Tour, I'm Willie Vogt with Farm Progress, and be sure to check out the DeKalb van at the Farm Progress Show.
Thank you, Willie, and I'm sure after all the wind events we've seen both this year and last year, that shorter statured corn might be a hit for growers. Folks, keep an eye out for that yellow van at the Farm Progress Show.
Now, agriculture meteorologist Greg Solier brings us his farm weather forecast for the nation for the week ahead. It's presented by Pivot BioProven, the nitrogen-producing microbes that stay put, whether or not.
It's time to chat weather, and to do that, we need to turn to our good friend, Greg Solier. Greg, over 1 million acres have burned in the Pacific Northwest so far. Are they going to catch a break this week?
I don't think so, at least from an organized moisture standpoint. That includes Northern California as well. Some 1,700 structures burned down, and the fire pattern continues on. We've had weather systems. They've been dry-based, though, and they spark just more lightning than anything. Once they get east of the divide, the dynamics of the moisture are there, and we ramp up these thunderstorms, especially across parts of the eastern Dakotas, Minnesota, Wisconsin last week. So another one of these systems coming ashore. At least we've knocked down the big hot ridge. Temperatures have certainly been that way about a week to 10 days ago, relaxing some. And as we move on through the middle and late portions of the week, there's another push of cooler air. Organized convection, a long way to go to probably improve the drought. May take until autumn and the winter with La Nina to get this improved. And at least it's a seasonal feel, but a very quiet, still dry weather picture across the Northern California, the Pacific Northwest. And these winds will vary as well. That makes certainly confinement of some of these fires a little more problematic and troublesome. Quiet weather across the valleys of California. Not much moisture to tap into. Central valleys. We've had a pretty decent monsoon setup, which will ease up this week. Typical heat through New Mexico, and the high humidity values continue across the plain states. Those dew points in the eastern plains and Corn Belt were just off the charts last week. We may spark a thunderstorm, dry one over the Sierra, with an uneventful weather picture for the valleys of California. And La Nina is going to be upon us this wintertime season. Moisture prospects for California do not at this current juncture look that impressive. Heat and humidity, as you would expect for the time of year across the plains, and there, a couple of thunderstorms will play out over some of the drier reaches now of Kansas, Nebraska, and Oklahoma.
Well, let's take a look at the Corn Belt, Greg. Of course, a lot of us are going to be in Decatur for Farm Progress Show next week. What's your sneak peek?
It will be the race between a remnant tropical system and a cold front. And I tell you, I wish we had the rains a couple of months ago, the stuff that came down out of the Red River Valley of the North, Minnesota, Wisconsin last week. And another system on the move. Here is this front, by the way, drier air with it. And we have at least the northern flank of some tropical moisture that may make it to here. A front stalls out. We'll keep an eye on shower thunderstorm prospects at Decatur for Farm Progress, and the heat continues on across the plains with a couple of more thunderstorms. A hint of autumn as you get up north towards the Sioux with high pressure later on into the week. Over the deep southern plains we go, and the Delta region. It's this low right here that will be likely a named system coming ashore west of New Orleans. That's usually a trip off that it could impact the Corn Belt with time, and it'll get up by the middle late portions of the week to about Oklahoma City, then probably swing towards the late portion of next week into the Corn Belt. Anyway, high humidity, overtly wet soils, and again, some tropical weather action over the lower Mississippi Valley mid to late portions of the week.
Greg, the tail end of last week saw big rain events in Tennessee and in New York City. Any of those on tap for this upcoming week?
Yeah, absolutely catastrophic cleanup and recovery down through Tennessee. And of course, at least we did get drought improvement, or will, into this part of the country. Here's a cool front and drier air ahead of it, widespread showers and thunderstorms. And we had big rains over the upper Midwest. Could again play out in some sections, the northern flank of tropical moisture here. We'll see if it gets to Decatur for the end part of Farm Progress. Cooler, drier air and drought improvement, by the way, coming off recent rains into the northeast and mid-Atlantic region as well. Here will be a named tropical system heading north and west of the Mississippi. Overtly wet soils, high humidity. The wet weather pattern continues down through Florida. And here go the showers and thunderstorm, gusty winds and downpours of rain. Again, maybe centered on Tennessee. Points westward and northward later on into the week.
Now, Greg Solier is back with his extended farm weather forecast for the country. Presented by Pivot Bio Proven. Visit pivotbio.com to find a representative near you.
Well, we've got to take a look at what to expect for precipitation this next week. Greg, what's on your radar?
Well, on much deliberation and plenty of it here, looking at maps and charts, the models in our experience, we think we have more weather-related issues regarding too much moisture into parts of Tennessee, the deep south and southeastern part of the country. But asterisk, we'll see how these named tropical systems, this one here and one moving up into the Ozarks, play out. It's possibility that we could see this shift northward. We could see it impact farm progress events as well, or stay down to the south. It's that setup with at least 3 features migrating across the tropical waters of the Atlantic. Remember, we've talked about that this would be the year in this part of the country and northward where moisture would come into play. At least there's drought improvement, more late season severe through the upper Midwest. Some of that moisture again for the upper Midwest and parts of Minnesota had 3 to 5 inches last week. Some scattered moisture, more lightning than anything in the Pacific Northwest.
Greg, how about the week of September 6th? What do you anticipate?
Temperatures, still a good accumulation of growing degree day units and rapid maturation if you've been even keeled in the soil moisture department. Relatively good news here. Normal temperatures over the southeastern part of the country, a slug of some cooler air up through Big Sky country. And the wet weather pattern is pretty widespread. It's monsoon set up here, dynamics and fronts driven here, and tropically related over this part of the country. So we should be able to ring out some significant drought improvement over some areas of the heartland and the upper Midwest with time.
Getting into the center part of September, that week of September 13th, do you see a cool-off in the forecast?
Not a lot of it. Still plenty of summertime heat to go. This cool down is contributed to run at late season moisture, monsoon moisture in the southwestern part of the country, tropical moisture and cloudiness here, and it very well could feel like midsummer time with the temperature still approaching at the September date, the century mark into the upper Midwest and western Corn Belt. Moisture still healthy in the southwestern part of the country, busy tropical pattern where we don't need any more water here, Ohio Valley and southward. Back to dry time for the upper Midwest. Normal rainfall for the northeast and New England.
And now that week of September 20th, that is the week that fall gets started, Greg. Is it going to feel like pumpkin latte season?
That's nice. It's a nice correlation there. Perhaps, by the way, up towards the Sioux, no early cold for now. We'll keep an eye on the tropics. If we get these systems to swing up the Atlantic and the eastern seaboard, that could be a different story. But warmth over the west, central and southern southern plains and southeastern part of the country. Moisture-wise, we begin to wind down the monsoon setup over the southwestern part of the country, back to ongoing dry time related issues across California. The tropics still busy here, but a tendency to move them then back offshore. But again, significant moisture anticipated, and maybe it's late in the season, but the recharge gets underway again for the upper Midwest, Canadian Prairie, the Northeast and New England, and too wet over the deep south and southeastern part of the country.
Next on This Week in Agribusiness, it's Max's Tractor Shed, spotlighting another great American tractor.
It's been a star of the half century of progress for a few shows now, the tractor known as Earthquake. I'll talk about it in Max's Tractor Shed. Brought to you by Store Lock Tool Cabinets. They'll be at the Big Farm Progress Show at the Varied Industries tent there, booth 543, with some of those outstanding cabinets. Ask for the boss, Mike. Tell him you want the Max Armstrong Farm Progress Show special on a Store Lock cabinet. If you can't get to the show, go to storelock.com. At the big Midwest farm shows going on now, some very big tractors are appearing. Coming up at the Farm Progress Show, well, Big Bud will be there. Big Bud was in Montana for the past year, actually doing some work in the field there for the Williams brothers. But he'll be at Decatur, Illinois for the folks at Titan Tires, showing off those LSW tires that Big Bud is now wearing. Then there's Earthquake, a massive tractor that was made in Montana almost 40 years ago. Earthquake was made in Great Falls, and for the past 9 years, the massive tractor has been owned by our friend Lee Randall Brothers, Northwest Ohio. Some other brothers, the Curtis brothers, had the Wright Manufacturing Company in Great Falls, and they made Earthquake. On the side of Earthquake, it says Delta Force 750, but it's an 850 horsepower machine, and yeah, it seems like the earth moves. For the fellow who owns it, Lee Randall of Holgate, Ohio. Well, Mark Stock is out at these shows too. You can find Mark. He'll be at the Farm Progress Show at the Big Iron display, but now he joins us to fill us in on some of the things crossing the block for Big Iron.
Well, Max, our September 1st Big Iron auction features 1,428 items. Doyle Hartley family is retiring. They're by Chester, Nebraska. They have 71 items on the sale. They feature a John Deere 4440 tractor and a Kill Brothers 475 grain cart. TCF Finance from Oxnard, California will be selling a 2017 Case IH Magnum 340 road track tractor to the highest bidder on this sale. Zenesec LLC out of Fairfax, Iowa will be selling their Gleaner R72 combine. Mark Gregg has got a perfect acreage tractor, folks, a John Deere 5085M mechanical front tractor with a loader and accessories. In Lincoln, Kansas, Ron Buttonhoff will be selling a Unifirth 9250 grain cart. And Lynch, Nebraska, Ronald Wright's got a 2013 Ford F-150 4x4 crew cab pickup. A wide variety of equipment selling on BigIron.com September the 1st. And while you're on our website, Max, check out the classic cars that will sell on our September 23rd special classic car auction. Just check everything out on BigIron.com.
The FFA Chapter Tribute is sponsored by Nationwide, the #1 farm insurer in the country. To register your FFA chapter, go to nationwidesupportsffa.com. That's nationwidesupportsffa.com. Nationwide. We stand for you.
Well, This Week in Agribusiness is proud to continue to salute the FFA across the country. And lately, we've been getting to know the folks from the Missouri State FFA Officer Team. Joining us this week is Caitlin Kleffner. She is a Missouri State Vice President. Caitlin, what prompted you to get involved with FFA?
Before my freshman year, I never really felt like I had a place in school or there was any like clubs or organizations that allowed me to grow my interest and appreciated me for what interest I had until I stepped foot into my first agriculture education class and I found FFA. In FFA, I was able to find people who shared the same interest in me and wanted to help grow me not only as an individual, but as an agriculturalist. And I absolutely fell in love with it. I felt like I had a place here. I felt like I had a home in FFA. And I just didn't want to stop.
You didn't want to stop, and you don't have to stop continuing to serve in your leadership position. Caitlin, looking out to this next year, as a state officer, what are you most excited about?
in this upcoming year, I'm most excited about getting to meet and connect with different members and help them see the side of them that can become an amazing agriculturalist, using the qualities that they already have and just improving them and being able to help them see that they too have a place in FFA and that they are welcome here.
That's fantastic. I assume in your FFA career, state officers had a positive impact on your time in the organization.
Yes, throughout my time in FFA, I was able to meet so many different past state FFA officers that encouraged me to step outside of my comfort zone and get involved with all of the different contest or leadership positions that I've held throughout my career, and I could not be more thankful to them.
That is fantastic. Caitlin, we wish you the best of luck as we continue to salute the FFA.
Now, Samuelson Says. Insight and commentary from Ori and Samuelson.
Remember a few weeks ago when I said there's a subject we love to talk about but we can't do much about? The weather? Well, since I said that, we have had all kinds of proof about weather and the inability for humans to control it. A quick review. The Colorado River that provides so much water for the city of Los Angeles and Phoenix and other cities in the Southwest at low levels and water rations going into effect. Then there's the flooding in Tennessee that took lives and destroyed property. And the hurricane that moved into New England, something that weather experts say we hadn't seen for 30 years. And it goes on and on and on. Brazil, our competitor in the soybean market and a major coffee producer, an early frost that has cut into production there. So we can continue to talk about weather all we want to, but we can't really control it. Makes you wonder if God is angry with everybody and every place on the planet, because we've certainly been getting our variety of weather that affects crop production, that affects harvest, that affects everything we do to produce food for a hungry world. So we'll talk about it and hope that maybe we see some of the dry areas get moisture that's so badly needed for the crops, and that hurricanes and tornadoes will avoid major population areas. We can talk about it, can't do much about it, except say a prayer or two for those people who are impacted negatively by the weather. Be safe. Be well. My thoughts on Samuelson Says.
This past week and current weekend, thousands of antique tractors and farm implements gathered in Rantoul for the Half Century of Progress show. Max Armstrong was there, and he has a report.
Oh yeah, Mike, there's a lot of equipment here. I have to tell you, I think at the show this year, there are more tractors, more combines, more pickers than we've ever seen. We've estimated in the past somewhere in the neighborhood of 4,000 pieces of equipment, and that's because we had some boys going around and doing some counting, which isn't easy to do. All of the clubs are represented here, all of the makes of antique tractors, and yes, all of the people. That's the neat part about it, and the stories you get as you visit with them are remarkable. It's a wide range of equipment that is brought in here. It's not just tractors and combines, but also, a lot of tillage equipment. And there's that pride of taking a plow into the field and actually plowing around at the Half Century of Progress. Guys talk about it all winter long, on into the next year, until they can come back 2 years later. Yeah, it's only every other year. This was the 10th year for the Half Century of Progress, the event that we started in 2003 in connection with that Farm Progress Show, celebrating the 50th anniversary of the Farm Progress Show, which started just a few miles east of here near the town of Armstrong, Illinois. So when we come back to the old air base, there are a lot of memories indeed that are rekindled. Well, our friend Chad Colby's been out running around taking a look at some of the things here too. Show us some things you have seen, Chad, and share with us some of your stories.
Max, you're right. This is a favorite show for me. every other year. It's the same year as the Farm Progress Show. I grabbed my vintage shirt and showed up today with my camera because there's so much to see. I even got to see some guys picking ear corn today, something I did as a young man. But events like this, they're just far and few between, and it gives people a chance to kind of rekindle some of those old memories that they had on their farm or ranch. I know there's equipment here from all over the country, there's people here from all over the world, but you have to thank all the volunteers and the sponsors that allow a great event like this to take place. Max, what's a special memory you have of this show?
Oh yes, we do have a bunch of memories because over the years we've met people here not just from doggone every state in America. Last year, for example, I met people from 32 states. I'm keeping track of them again this year, but there have been people here in the past from Australia, from New Zealand, from Belgium, from the Netherlands, England, yeah, of course Canada too. Maybe we can return to normal 2 years from now when the show is held here again at Rantoul, Illinois. We certainly hope so. We look forward to seeing you at one of these events somewhere along the way, or maybe the Farm Progress Show, Mike.
Thank you, Max. The Half Century of Progress Show, a lot of great equipment, but importantly also a lot of great people. Folks, that's going to be the recipe next week at the Farm Progress Show. Lots to see, lots of folks to talk to. Get it on your schedule in Decatur, Illinois. Thanks so much for joining us, folks. Until next time, we appreciate you being with us on This Week in Agribusiness.
Closed captioning for This Week in Agribusiness is brought to you by Kubota. Shape your world. This Week in Agribusiness is brought to you by Firestone. You never farm alone. This Week in Agribusiness is produced by Omax Communications in association with 22 Creative Group. We invite you to visit us online at agbizweek.com.